Good evening, Facebook. It's Dr. Ali Miller, and it is 9 o'clock on Thursday night. And we are almost done the second week of school here in Ontario, and that is pretty darn exciting. So whoop whoop to all your parents that have gotten through. I wanted to do this webinar tonight on anxiety because it is something that I am seeing so much of and hearing so much about. And I wanted to share this information because I love what I do. And I really want to make sure that, and I hope that this lands on the lap of someone that really needs to hear it, whether it be for themselves or their child or their spouse or their coworker, the what's and the whys of anxiety, the signs that you may see with anxiety, and the action steps of what you can do. So I do have a cheat sheet with me because I don't want to ramble on and on. Everyone has other things to do this evening, and Facebook Live wouldn't love that either. So it is just going to keep me on track. We are back to school, which is a season of anxiety for a lot of kids. Kids are in new classrooms, they're with new teachers, they're with new friends, they're learning new expectations of their grade level. Some of them are back to their full-on sports commitments, right? So they're back at gymnastics or dance or hockey schedules. And this can be overwhelming for a lot of people and bring about anxiety for a lot of kids. And although anxiety is super common, it's not normal. So being nervous is normal. That is a feeling in the moment, and then it goes away. And anxiety is when you get stuck in that feeling for a long period of time. And I really feel for a lot of these kids that are struggling. So I'm a mom. I have dealt with my own children with anxiety. So I know how that feeling of helplessness when you want to help your child and you just can't seem to. I feel for those moms who have tried everything, who have spoken to everybody, and who are still looking for answers. I feel for those moms who are trying their very best, but sometimes lose their patience and they break and they explode and they tell their children to get over it. And I feel especially for these kids who struggle every day to just get up and get out the door and get to school. So again, I just want to share this information to help. If you have any questions as we go along, please feel free to just type them in the comment section and I will acknowledge them, or feel free to message me on Facebook. If you have someone that you think could benefit from this video, please tag them or share the video or message me, and I will be happy to connect with them to send them a replay of the video as well. So let's go from the very beginning and talk about anxiety versus fear. Okay, so fear is an emotion that you feel in a moment, right? So if you were running from a bear, you would be scared and your heart would be racing really fast and your eyes would get really big. And as they get closer, you would be going as far away as you could. Anxiety is that feeling when you don't even, something hasn't even happened yet and you're in that same state and it's there for a long period of time. So I'm sure you've all been driving down the road and you have that squirrel that runs across the road, and so you slam on your brakes, and after you slam on the brakes you're like, oh, right, and your heart's beating really fast and you have to take a big breath and you're pretty like stuck in a moment of panic for a second, but then that goes away. So picture being in that state all the time. Okay, and that is what anxiety is. So maybe your heart's racing, maybe you're sweating, maybe you're stuck in that fight or flight and it just doesn't go away. So how does our body get stuck in that stress mode? Well, there's 3 different stresses. So there are traumas, toxins, and thoughts. So traumas are the physical stressors that our bodies have to go through. So with kids, imagine their growth spurts, right? So as kids are growing, those are physical stresses on their body. As they go through puberty, there's a lot of hormones running through them, and especially in girls, that can trigger a fight or flight response. If we think about sports, competitive sports, contact sports, again, we're having a lot of physical stresses on our body. The second one is toxins, and these are the chemical stresses that go into our body. So this is on our body or in our body. Okay, so think about the food we're eating, shampoo and creams we're using, cleaning agents. Things aren't what they once were, right? So the quality of our food isn't the same, way more pesticides being sprayed on things, way more processed foods, substances and agents in our cleaning supplies and our body care products also aren't the same. So our toxin levels and chemical stresses are higher than they used to be. The third T is thoughts, and these are the emotional stresses. And this is really one of the biggest stresses that we encounter, and it actually leaves the biggest mark. So I want you to kind of think about, a day in the life of these kids right now. So they have their academic and their curriculums are way tougher than once upon a time when I was there. Their family situations are often different. Two parents are working. We have more blended families. We have more families that are split apart. The stresses involved with that on kids is going to be higher. They have more sports commitments, right? So rep teams, once upon a time, maybe you practiced once, you played once. Now these kids, I have kids in my office that play hockey and are on the ice 5-6 times a week, right? So commitments with sports is a lot more emotional, stressful. And their social world is way different. So social media and technology, they are getting connected way younger, right? So if I even look at my own daughters and the ages that they kind of, had more use of a cell phone, with each one, it has been younger and younger and younger. So they are feeling like they're more connected with one another, but in reality and in real life, they are actually less connected. So adults and children alike, a lot of times phones are the first thing they do when they wake up in the morning, and it's the last thing they do when they go to bed at night. And so we're taking those moments and comparing ourselves to others instead of, loving the crap out of ourselves, essentially. So our body and our nervous systems are really good at adapting to these stresses and keeping us alive and healthy. But you can imagine all these stressors, and I usually like to describe it like a meter, right? So we've got these chemical stresses, we've got these physical stresses, we've got these emotional stresses, and everything has a threshold. And when we hit that threshold, that is when our body goes into fight or flight, and it doesn't know what to do, and our perception gets all altered. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit nerdy on you for a few minutes here, because I want to talk about just the science of what happens when our body goes into that fight or flight response, okay? That feeling of anxiety when we're stuck there for too long. So again, I already mentioned to you that your nervous system controls absolutely everything in your body. So you watching this video, your eyes blinking, your heart beating, you digesting your delicious dinner that you ate a few hours ago, all this is happening and you're not really thinking about it. This is all, under control of your nervous system. And it is constantly perceiving all these different things from the environment. And you can imagine if it has tons and tons and tons of stuff coming in and it gets overwhelmed and it's really noisy information going up to our brain is going to be so noisy and trying to kind of process all this stuff and put it in the right file folders. And when it can't do that, when it's too much information, that output is going to be messy as well and noisy as well. And so, you can think about that as in terms of, food, right? If I was to go every day and eat McDonald's breakfast, lunch, and dinner for many, many days, you can imagine what my body would look like and what my body would feel like, right? Garbage in equals garbage out. And it's much the same. If our brain is getting this noisy brain, it's going to be a noisy message coming out. So how does chiropractic fall into all of this, right? Chiropractors deal with neck pain, back pain, headaches, and you're right, chiropractors work on your spine. And your spine serves as this conduit to send the messages between your brain and your body, okay? And as all this is happening, if something isn't moving properly, that brain isn't going to get the right message from your body. So it's like when you try and send a text message and it doesn't go through, or when a phone call doesn't connect. Okay, our brain isn't getting the right message, so it's trying to process it, and then its message back out to the environment is either going to be less than normal, meaning that maybe, your immune system isn't working properly, or the response is going to be the wrong response. And that could be in a form of a behavior, right? So maybe it's a meltdown, or maybe it's a child not concentrating in class, right? So whatever our brain's taking in, it needs to be able to send out again. This is anxiety. When our body is overwhelmed and our brain isn't getting the right message, it's going to get stuck in that fight or flight mode, okay? It gets stuck in that stress state. So chiropractors influence the nervous system. When we can get your body communicating properly with your brain, that proper message is going to be sent out, that calming message, right? It gives, if we have a good message going up to our brain can essentially take a big breath, and it goes out and it sends that right output. Pretty cool. Awesome. Okay, enough with the nerd moment. I want to talk about a little bit about the signs that we commonly see with children with anxiety. And the first one and the biggest one is probably sleep. So you can imagine a child that is in this fight or flight stress state all day long, and they are revved up and their gas pedal is like pushed down to the ground. And then all of a sudden at night, we expect them to climb into bed, close their eyes, and go to sleep. Okay, really, really hard for them to do. So this usually presents itself in the manner that, we try and do this bedtime routine early. So we start, at a certain time, and we try and have the bath and read the book and try and settle these kids. And somehow 3 hours later, we're still in that bedtime routine. Okay, bedtime routines take a long time when kids can't settle. This also is seen overnight, oftentimes with kids that are sleepwalking, sleep talking, night terrors. Again, these are all signs that that brain is over revved and just can't settle when they're sleeping. And of course, when we don't sleep well, then our morning routine is going to be off, and children are going to be less cooperative, and we're going to have meltdowns, and our day is just not going to get off on the right foot, and sets up the next day and evening for the same repeat activity. So that is our first sign. Our second sign is often emotions. And this is really big with kids and with women too, where it is normal to have highs and lows to your emotions. When you can't find that rhythm, or where there's no rhyme or reason to having these emotional breakdowns or meltdowns, those are signs of anxiety. And, even just last week, we had a little girl in the office who experiences some of these meltdowns for what we would think is no reason. And in those moments, she actually communicates to her mom and says, I don't know why I'm not listening to you right now. I don't know why I'm behaving this way. So it's something's happening with that message going up, that the response coming out isn't even something she wants to do. It's just what's happening. The third sign we see often in children that are suffering with anxiety is a lot of fidgeting. So this might be, nail biters, lip lickers, kids that fidget with their nose a lot, wiggle their nose, or they have different other motor, tics, so to speak. And again, when their brain is so overwhelmed with all of this information, they're lacking certain sensory information. And so the child's body is actually trying to provide that sensory information up to their brain that they're lacking. So this is where you'll see the constant tics or the fidget or the nail biting, whatever it may be. The fourth sign that we often see is that other systems start to struggle. So remember when I talked about that bear chasing you, right? When you're running from the bear, you are not worried about stopping to go to the bathroom. You are not worried about catching a cold, because those systems don't have to work right then. And it's very similar in children with anxiety, right? So if they're stuck in that fight or flight, their immune system isn't really going to be worried about anything. And so these kids oftentimes will be the ones that catch those chronic coughs, colds, flus. Oftentimes when we see kids with anxiety, they have stomach aches often, or their digestive systems are off, right? Maybe they're having a hard time going to the bathroom, or they're going to the bathroom too much. We'll see some hormonal endocrine systems that aren't, working properly. So again, they're so consumed with this fight or flight response that their other systems in their body are starting to suffer. And the fifth sign that we commonly see, and I think this one is the most heartbreaking to watch, is the social signs. So again, these are kids that are fearful of the outside world, and they are fearful of trying new things. So they don't want to go to sleepovers. They don't want to try out for a sports team. They don't want to meet new friends. As they get older, they worry about people not wanting to hang out with them, or not having enough friends. And we don't want kids locked into that feeling. We want them to get out of their comfort zone. We want them to try new things, to go out for new sports, to do these things. And when we see those wins, those are the best ones of all, right? Those are the kids that are really, really succeeding. So what can you do? You can definitely, ask questions here, message me. I can guide you and try and find some answers for you. And I'm also going to give you some tips. So I'm going to give you just a handful of tips here that maybe you can try in your house if you're having some of these issues with children that are suffering with this anxiety. So the first one is that nervous or anxious children crave routine. Okay, so anytime we start a new season, when we have any transition time, especially back to school, we need to establish some kind of routine with these kids. And of course, it's a learning curve to kind of get into the groove of where drop off is, where the classroom is, all that kind of stuff, what sports are which night. But once you get into that routine and once you learn it, try and stick with it. Okay. This will really benefit, having to just function with your family and these kids on a day-to-day basis. The second one is to decrease the chaos. So this has a lot to do with the moms, okay? So this is because the anxiety that we feel as moms is felt in our kids. And I learned this firsthand when I was at chiropractic college. My oldest daughter was a baby. And she was a good baby. But when I would be going through exam times at school, so of course my stress was a little heightened. She would not sleep properly. She wasn't eating properly. She wanted me to hold her all the time. And of course that would make me more stressed, which would make her more stressed. And it was just this vicious cycle. So I did learn that obviously my anxiety and my stress was being felt by her. So again, it's important for you to take time for yourself, to make sure you are eating well, to make sure you're sleeping well, to make sure you're working out and getting adjusted. All of these things will calm your own anxiety and will change your state. Your children will in turn see that and they will want to be like that. So decreasing the chaos in your own life is a key step to helping the anxiety within your children. The movement. So oftentimes, I'll have moms say to me, his anxiety was much better during the summer. Well, yes, the summer was a time when they were outside burning energy, right? They were swimming, they were riding their bike, they were running around. They were just go, go, go all the time. They were burning that energy. And now, of course, we've switched into this season where they're back to school. So they're sitting for, 6 hours a day and they're not moving as much. Our weather here is going to change in a little bit. It's going to be colder outside. We won't spend as much time outdoors and we're going to spend a lot more time in front of screens. So again, we need to give these kids breaks and give them the movement that their brains and bodies need and crave. And this is a great one for your whole family, for you as well, right? To get outside for whatever it may be. Maybe it's only 15, 20 minutes after school or in the evening, get some fresh air, be around some trees and get some green space. This is going to help all of you and you can move around and this is exactly what their brains and bodies need. They're not going to melt if it's too hot. They can bundle up if it's cold. They won't dissolve if it's raining. Just get outside. And the fourth tip I want to share with you is obviously to get your children checked and adjusted by a pediatric chiropractor. And this one is hard for me because it almost leaves me a little bit speechless because I want to share this so much and I almost don't know how to get the word out because I know the value of your body communicating properly with your brain. And I know that chiropractic helps that communication. And if your children are feeling any anxiety, chiropractic can help. Now, I know that a lot of times this is new information for some of you. Some of you were looking for a different approach or you were looking for a different option. And I appreciate that because obviously what's happening right now isn't working. These kids are struggling and the families are in turn struggling. So again, I hope that you can take a piece of this evening and apply it into your house or ask a question that will benefit your family. I hope that if you know of someone that can benefit from this, please share it with them because together we can all get well together and together we make a family. And good night. We will see you guys soon. Take care.